Morena and welcome everyone. We're just going to open the meeting. Thank you to Brother Reverend Andrew McKean from the Anglican Church who will open our meeting for us.
Tata Marie, ngā mihi nui kia koutou katoa, ko angaru tōku ingoa, ko te pauhono wairoa hau ki te whare wānanga o Waikato. Madam Chair, Councillors, greetings from the Waikato Interfaith Council. I'm Brother Andrew. You'll usually hear me on campus referred to as Bro A, and I'm the University Chaplain. In the Bible reading from the Gospel according to Luke set down for us Anglicans today, Jesus asked the apostles, "Who among you would say to your slave who has just come in from ploughing or tending sheep in the field, 'Come here at once and take your place at the table'? Would you not rather say to him, 'Prepare supper for me, put on your apron and serve me while I eat and drink? Later you may eat and drink.' Do you thank the slave for what was commanded? So you also, when you have done all that you were ordered to do, say, 'We are worthless slaves. We have done only what we ought to have done.'" I have to say, that doesn't exactly feel like the good news of Jesus Christ. But it's a reality for many of us, whether we are the unsung heroes of our community or something much more ordinary. We do what we're called to do, and regardless of how well we do it or how good our motives are, we don't get much in the way of recognition or even just basic gratefulness. We're much more likely to hear, "Why didn't you do such and such?" Or "How come they got what they wanted and I didn't?" Or "Why aren't the rates I pay going to the services that I want?" When was the last time someone said to you, "Well done, good and faithful servant"? Or, "Man, you worked hard today. Come and have some refreshment. Take the load off your feet." Well, today, we of the Waikato Interfaith Council and the Anglican Church want to say how much we appreciate what you are doing for our community. We know it can be a sacrificial act of love, and we want you to know that we are upholding you in prayer. So this morning, we call on whatever God or higher power you acknowledge, that they may assist you with the spirit of counsel and fortitude. May the light of divine wisdom direct your deliberations and shine forth in your proceedings. May God's powerful protection enable you to discharge your duties with honesty and ability. And may you be preserved in a sense of true community, so that you can model being good neighbours and serve one another in love, looking out especially for those who do not share our advantages. May you be given such a vision of order and beauty for our city, that the health and welfare of all our citizens may be promoted, and the needs of young and old, tangata whenua and tangata tiriti be supplied. The Lord give you peace. Amen. I'd love to stay, but I'm rushing off to try and help an elderly friend of mine sort his computer out. Never perform with children, animals, or computers. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bro A, thank you. That was really heartwarming, and you know, it's important to remember that, you know, we are in a position of privilege, and sometimes it can be a bit rough out there, and so I think in a roundabout way, it's important to remember that, you know, we are here to do right by our communities, which sets a really good tone for today's meeting. Which we will get to now. We've got apologies, full absence from Mayor Southgate and Councillor Tauriki, and partial attendance from Councillor Donovan. Are there any other apologies?
Can you just please, Chair, note that Mayor Southgate is in council business?
Yeah. I will move those, and Councillor Anna to second. All those in favour say aye. Aye. That is unanimous.
The vote was carried unanimously.
Confirmation of the agenda. I will move Councillor Anna to second. Any questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
The motion was carried unanimously.
And declarations of interest. Are there any declarations? Nope. Note that there are none, and we shall move to public forum. We do have a few speakers this morning, so welcome to you all. We can give you a full 5 minutes, so I ask that you just keep that in mind. If you'd like to take questions from the floor, that is part of your 5 minutes. So first, to welcome Neil Tolan from Western Community Centre. Welcome, Neil.
Good morning, beautiful people. Neil from the Western Community Centre, and today we are requesting the continuation of our land lease at Elliott Park, 2 L's and 2 T's, it gets misspelled quite a bit, and the gifting of the unused changing room and toilets to create a youth hub. The changing rooms have not been used for approximately 14 years and are pretty much just gathering dust. We're hoping to transform the unused sports changing rooms into a new youth hub. This space is located across from our skate park and basketball court. It will be a dedicated spot where our young people can gather, connect, access services, and hang out with our youth workers. Our youth workers do an amazing job, and this space will take the work we do with our community to another level. The Western Community Centre is a place where 171 community groups, clubs, faith-based communities, organisations, agencies, and training providers use our venue annually. There's 2,364 bookings each year, 95 unique services available to our community, hundreds of volunteer opportunities, and 3 to 4 key community events, including Treats in the Park. And next year will be our number 20, and that event is predominantly run by youth under the age of 18. In 2029, the Western Community Centre will be celebrating 50 years, which is an awesome, I guess I think back to the people at that very first committee that decided to go ahead with it, and it's quite cool to be sitting in the space we're in, and particularly with the work we want to do with our young people in our community. So that's pretty much all I've got to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? If you pose it as a semi-question.
Am I allowed to say it?
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you, Neil, and for your presentation and for the work that you do.
Thank you very much.
It's much appreciated.
Thank you.
We'll move to Jackie Hart from Progress to Health, please.
Just hand them down. Kia ora, ko Jackie Hart toko ingoa. I'm the Service Development Manager from Progress to Health, and we're here this morning in support of our application for community lease of the site that we call Caro Gardens. We've been operating out of the gardens for 5 years. These 2 lovely ladies, Lisa and Tia, coordinate the garden program for us. We bought you some gifts. They are gifts, not bribes. And so far we've been in the site for 5 years, and we've applied to extend the lease for 10 years. And I don't want to repeat what I've already said in the lease, but I thought it would be opportune to give you some feedback from people who use the service directly. So it's a place to have time out and a break, a non-judgmental place to let off steam and refocus. It helps me get out and about. I like eating fresh vegetables. I can take it further and use it somewhere else because I learn a lot about planting and gardening. I like socialising and doing something I haven't done before. I really like it here. I'm wrapped, making a difference in a productive and necessary development of the garden. So we believe that this gives us a place in the middle of the city for people who have mental health challenges or disabilities to come reflect and, as we all know, getting our hands in the dirt and being in the sunshine is one of the easiest and best contributors to mental health and wellbeing we can have in the community. So, any questions?
Are there any questions for Jackie? Councillor?
Yeah, your gardens look amazing. Do you also get support from our Tronpost people?
Yes,
For
we got the first ton delivered to the garden from the, so somewhere in the archives there's a picture of Anna and I shoveling compost to celebrate, Nobody told me I was doing that day, so I turned up in pale pink, which is not the best outfit for shoveling compost. But yes, we do.
well, that gives me a great image of my kitchen waste going into your beautiful
Yes.
production. Kia
And
ora.
then growing
Thank you.
into veggies that are going then back to, I thought Bro A's blessing this morning was very relevant because, Kia ora. Is that it?
No other questions? Thank you so much for your presentation and for the gifts, not bribes. And James will help with that. It's very pretty. So. Yeah. Add some color.
By the way, broccoli and beetroot salad is
Well, there you go. Are they going to speak together? Do you know? Okay. Can we welcome Emma Brooks from Turn and Gymnastics Circle, please? Welcome, Gemma. Emma, sorry.
Kia ora koutou. Thanks for allowing me to speak with you again this morning. I think most of you know I'm the president of Turn and Gymnastics Circle, and I'm speaking to the agenda item in relation to our proposed development at the Eastlink Community Hub. My aim this morning is just to supplement the information that you already have in your agenda pack. So I think it's important to note that at Turn and Gymnastics Circle we have a strong and stable governance team. That team has been in place with a combined service to the club of 24 years at the moment and growing. We have a robust balance sheet. So in 2023 our total income was $300,000. And in 2024, we are set to achieve $375,000. We operate a tight operation. In the last 5 years, we've enjoyed strong growth. So since we've moved to our current location at Waikato Stadium with the help of Hamilton Old Boys, we've added 300 new members to our club. And our average growth rate is 50 new members every year. At the moment, we're sitting on a current total of 500 members. Our athletes place nationally each year in their disciplines at the national championships, and they're proud to represent the Waikato region. The recently completed Hamilton Gymnastics Facility Network study found there's high latent demand in the city for gymnastics, and both gymnastics clubs in the city are operating at capacity in terms of total membership. The study also found that with no current lease, Turn and Gymnastics Circle has no security of tenure. Our colleagues at Hamilton City Gymnastics cannot accommodate our membership if we were displaced. Our proposed membership forecast for 2048 is a membership base of 983 members. So the proposed development at Eastlink is critically important. This would also free up valuable indoor court space at the Te Rapa Sports Dome. This is currently used by our rhythmic gymnastics programs, and that space is a strategic priority for Sport Waikato in the city for other sports. Our members are typically aged between 3 and 12 years old, and our sport develops fundamental movement skills that enables physical literacy. So this becomes an opportunity to feed into other sports and recreation activities. For this reason, we believe that we'd provide benefits to all of the existing Eastlink sports clubs as a feeder into their programs. We've commenced discussions with the key funders to enable our proposed development, and they have reiterated that they would require more certainty in terms of the site location at Eastlink before we can apply for funds for the project. Because of the uncertainty in our current training location, we're aiming for a condensed development schedule. This would be key funding, grant funding achieved in 2025 so that we can commence building in the 2026 calendar year. We would greatly appreciate your support in principle for the development of our gymnastics facility at the Eastlink Community Hub. Thank you.
Any questions? Yes, Councillor Andrew, online.
Thank you. A few community groups have recently got some nasty shocks from council when they're doing building developments, when the council spends them for development contributions. Are you aware of this and sort of able to budget for it now rather than getting a bad shock later?
Sorry if I understand the question. Are we aware of development contributions in terms of the project? Yes, we have started those discussions.
Good. That's it.
Thank you. Any other questions? No. Thank you, Emma. That was clear. And thank you for coming in. Can we welcome Rena Schuster from speaking on behalf of the Eastlink Community Hub Board? And Leanne Stewart.
E oku rangatira, tēnā rā koutou katoa. Ko Rena Schuster hau, ko Leanne Stewart tēnei. He mihi mahana tēnei ki a koutou katoa ki te whare hoki. Leanne and I are here today as members of the Eastlink Board Hub to express our support for Turnham Gymnastics Circle joining the hub as a member club. Eastlink signed an MOU with Turnham Gymnastics Circle in mid-2023 for the development of Turnham Gymnastics Circle. Since signing the MOU, TNGC have contributed significantly to the development of the master plan via the steering group that was assembled. One of the priority projects that came out of the master plan in years 1 to 3 was the development of the gym sport facility. In July this year, Turnham Gymnastics Circle was ratified as a member of the Eastlink Community Hub, and we support the staff recommendation for councillors to approve in principle the development of Turnham Gymnastics Circle facility at Eastlink. We further request council support for the renewal of the Eastlink Hub head lease in due course, and any subleases to the existing member organisations, including Turnham Gymnastics Circle. We're excited to be moving into the next phase of the master plan, which includes engagement with Ngāti Wairere and into a developed design phase. Thank you very much.
That was clear. Leanne, would you like to add anything?
I'm all good. I think Rena has touched on everything we need to touch base on. So, yeah, okay. If anyone's got any questions.
Mm-hmm. Are there any questions from the floor? Or online? No. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And just to note, our councillors online this morning, Councillor Andrew, Councillor Jeff, Councillor Sarah, and Councillor Mark has just joined as well. Good morning to you all, and welcome. And Councillor Minister, yeah, Mini Councillor Stevie. Oh, she waved, I think. Did you see that? And also welcome to our acting GM for today, Maria Barry. Great to have you on this on the main table. Okay, moving to item 5, confirmation of the committee open minutes from the 10th of September. Happy to move. Councillor Anna to second. Any comments or questions? All those in favour say aye.
The motion was carried unanimously.
Thank you, James. Item 6, the Chair's report. Thank you. I want to thank Councillor Anna and Councillor Mark for their contributions as well. Before I speak, I just wanted to welcome any comments or remarks from Councillor Mark or Councillor Anna, if you have any. Councillor Anna?
Just quickly in regards to, we did have a meeting with Public Health and the police, just an initial discussion around local alcohol policies. And I just wanted to, I guess, let everyone know, and I can share it, there's a new guide that's been put out from Alcohol Health Watch regarding how best to develop a local alcohol policy and the things to consider. So it's just good reading, and it brings together a lot of the research around local alcohol policy. So this is something, this isn't the first rodeo that council's had with the local alcohol policy, so I recognise that, but there has been some, I guess, interest from the police and public health about development, and we're responding to that by initiating discussion, and there will be further discussion through probably that LTP amendment as well. So, but yeah, I'll share that document because I think it's useful for all of us to have a look at. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Mark, anything to...
Oh, excuse me, that wasn't good timing. No, I think I summed it up pretty much in my little contribution to your Chair's report, but just nice to see the sun shining and people out and about doing stuff in the various different parks and recreational areas around the city. So, yeah, looking good. Nice to have, let's hope we have some nice warm weather take us through to summer. Thanks.
Thank you. So, yeah, my report, I tried to highlight, as Councillor Mark has just said, with the warm weather coming on, we're seeing a huge amount of events happening around the city, which is awesome. It adds to our vibrancy and fun place to live. Just last week, there was Diwali at the lake, which attracted over 10,000 people. Phenomenal, even though it was a bit rainy to start with. Mayor Southgate couldn't make it, unfortunately, so Councillor Anna and I were able to speak on behalf of Council, which was really cool. Councillor Tim and Councillor Emma, I did see you in the crowd as well, so that was a fantastic event. And I just wanted to quickly highlight, I have put in an acknowledgement to our council teams with the summer season approaching, and if it's okay with you, I just wanted to quickly just read a paragraph from the report. So as the weather warms and the daylight stretches into evenings, our community teams across Hamilton are preparing for a busy and vibrant summer season. I'd like to take a moment to recognize and thank all our council teams, especially those within this portfolio, for their dedication to ensuring Hamiltonians and visitors alike enjoy a safe, lively and memorable holiday season. Our teams at Waterworld, the Parks and Recreation crew, including those who maintain our playgrounds in top-notch condition, as well as the dedicated staff at the Hamilton Gardens, museums, zoo, libraries, and community houses, all play an invaluable role in making our city shine. The season is when our facilities truly come to life, showcasing the very best Hamilton has to offer. I also extend special acknowledgement to our community advisors, our city and our City Safe teams. Your ongoing commitment, especially to those who will continue working through the holiday season, ensures that our residents and visitors experience the highest quality, clean and enjoyable spaces. So on behalf of this committee, we send our best wishes to all our teams and their families for a safe, fun and fulfilling summer season ahead. Your hard work, often behind the scenes, does not go unnoticed, and it's deeply appreciated. So thank you for making Hamilton a city we're all proud to share. So thank you to our staff, and I'm sure Acting GM Maria can pass that on as well. So thank you. And because, it is a bit of a short meeting, so I did have a little blurb here, sorry, with your... I have a very condensed list of some of the highlights from this year. This is the last meeting for the year, so I just wanted to quickly highlight a few of our projects within the portfolio. This is just a snippet. Obviously, there's a lot more that's happened. So we've had our Magical Bridge opening and other playground renewals, developed a successful partnership with Water Safety New Zealand and launched the Manu with Mana campaign, educating Hamiltonians about safety in the hour. Stage 1 floodlighting upgrades at Porritt Stadium, Angawa, and Korikori Park were completed. The Lido Pool refurbishment was completed. There were 414,362 visits to Waterworld, Gallagher Aquatic Centre, and the Council's partner pools around the city. That's over 400,000 if you missed that number. Animal Control helped find forever homes for more than 142 dogs. Fairfield Skate Park opened just recently. Pātaka unveiling in Donny Park. We created a memory meadow, completed no mow trials in 13 areas. The Hamilton Gardens Visitor Centre opening. Hamilton Gardens was named in the top 1% of things to do in the world on TripAdvisor. Helped create a rainbow bridge of remembrance at Minogue Park. 43,000 native plants planted across Kirikiriroa during this year's planting season. 43,000. We've got a new floor of Excite, which was opened up at the museum. We launched the monthly Happening in Hamilton newsletter to promote the awesome events and activities in our city, and the launch of the Kai map. Thank you to Councillor Anna. So with that, I will welcome any questions or comments. No, thank you. If anyone else would like to speak, nope, and I shall move that. Councillor Anna to second. All those in favour, raise your hand.
The motion is carried unanimously.
Thank you for allowing me the little blurb. Moving to item 7, please. Community occupancy applications. Welcome, Karen.
Morena, my name's Karen Kwok. I'm the team leader of sport and community facilities. And beside me today, I've got Lindsay Walters, who's the recreation facilities advisor. So this report today is seeking approval of 4 community leases, and staff have recommended the maximum lease terms under the policy for each of these groups. So just 2 separate components for approval that staff have put up. The first one is the transfer of ownership of the disused council changing rooms and public toilets at Elliott Park to Western Community Centre, which Neil mentioned, and the in-principle approval for Turner Gymnastics Circle to develop a gym sports facilities at Eastlink. Happy to take any questions.
Are there any questions? Perfect. No questions.
Just updating the 2 hours, 2 teas.
Noted. Just catching up. No, nothing. Thank you. Councillor Ewan, you moved? Yep. Would you like to speak to it?
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Look, I just want to make a couple of observations. The first observation is whenever I think of the best run community house in Hamilton, the Western Community Centre comes to mind. They provide an unbelievable service. I sometimes wonder, I don't know how lucky, I hope they understand how lucky they are to have Neil, because I find the way he manages his organisation that he leads particularly good, so I have no difficulty in supporting what's in front of us today. I also say the same about Eastlink. You know, if you're looking for an initiative that is producing really good outcomes, you can't go much further than Eastlink. So we only get to do this every once in a while, but I have absolute confidence and comfort in reconfirming these long-term leases to provide some certainty, and I can't wait to have the same opportunity when Eastlink comes back to us in due course. So other than that, Madam Chair, that was it.
Councillor Louise?
I know that sometimes coming to council to ask for things can be a little bit nerve-wracking and can be sometimes uncertain depending on the flavour of the day. But I just wanted to take the time to acknowledge these groups who have been working closely with council, but also for those of you who came today. You've actual jobs, like turning up to council to ask for things from us, I know is an extra thing in your day, and I appreciate you taking the time, and the earnest advocacy that you have for your organisations is really commendable, and I certainly appreciate it, as well as the work you do. So thank you for taking the time, even though we had no questions. It really spoke to the clarity of the presentations.
Thank you. Councillor Anna?
Yeah, I just want to also acknowledge all the organisations who've come, and in particular, I guess the way that I see the kōrero focused on the wellbeing of young people, in particular through Western, but also for the gymnastics, as you pointed out, Emma. It's a really popular thing for our young people, and that wellbeing is just so important, and how that connects to our youth action plan. So I'm just really excited to see that, and also want to acknowledge Emma and your attempts to find location and a place to be in the community. It's not easy. We don't always have the facilities we need in our city to support all this growth and good work. So thank you for your persistence and your creativity in finding ways to make that work. And I also want to acknowledge Progress to Health, who I think might have gone, but just their work in terms of creating that or putting a focus on the links between our work in the whenua and our well-being, and how they do that through the community garden in that space. It is, I guess, easy to sort of think, oh, that's just a nice little community garden, and not recognise the significance of that in terms of well-being and the implications that it has for our community. And I've been down to that space and seen just how well they connect with community and bring people in, and it's just, these things that happen in our community should never be underestimated. So thank you so much for coming in and sharing your work, and thank you to the staff team for enabling our community to have a place in our city.
Thank you. Councillor Maria?
O tēnā koutou, ko tāku noiho he tō ai te mihi ki a koutou katoa. Koutou e hāpai ana i tō tātou hapori, mai runga ki raro mai ngā tahataha katoa. E uai te kōrero e harataku toa i te toa takitahi, engari he toa takitini. He tautoko ki ngā kōrero e pāna ki te hiki, te hāpai, te hunga rangatahi, wai hoki i ngō tātou kaumātua ahakoa ko wehe atu rātou. Kei te kitea i roto i ngō koutou pūrongo, i te ātāhua o te noho tahi o ngā taina me ngā tuakana, me te ū ki ngā āhuatanga a kuima, a koroma, te whare tapawha. So I'm just mirroring the mihi the acknowledgements to all of you that support our community from the top to the bottom, from each side, that embody the principles of the whare tapawha and ensure that all sides of our being, whether it be physical, spiritual, emotional, mental, the family is taken care of, that not only the rangatahi, our youth are supported, but also our kaumātua, our elderly people, because you cannot have one without the other. Nā reira, tēnā koutou katoa. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Emma.
Thank you. As our Chair's report mentioned today, how our staff make Hamilton shine, but equally it is the workers and the team and the network of volunteers in our local groups that make Hamilton shine. Without our community centres like Western, our sports and hobby groups like the Gymnastic Club and the Remote Cars Club and the NGOs like Progress to Health, that they just work so tirelessly to help our people and look after them. And this is what makes Hamilton a great place to live. And we're just so lucky to have you and your teams behind us to support the community and support the people of Hamilton. So just thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair Kesh, tautoko ngā mihi, mihi atu kia koutou katoa. I remember working for Ministry of Māori Development years ago on the capacity building program. One of the determinants of success was this philosophy of initiate nothing, motivate no one. And it's really, it's really heartwarming actually to see a report like this with these community champions coming forward and, putting forward these goods, driving these initiatives and, seeking support from council and being able to support them this way. So I thought this a really cool paper actually, and I just want to acknowledge, Councillor Ewan has, Neil's huge pedigree working within the Western Community Centre from when he was a youth advisor years ago through to now. It's great to see you in this role, Neil, knowing that you've got that huge background of experience and, Treats in the Park going up 20 years. And it's really nice to drive past Elliott Park and Fairfield Park at night and to see the utilisation of the communities of those spaces. I think that's a real winner, so just wanted to acknowledge that. Kia ora tātou.
I'd just like to add, when Bro A opened our meeting this morning and he spoke about gratitude and recognition, and I think that goes, citywide. I think Councillor Emma mentioned our volunteers, our community groups, us, even though, we're not very good at praising ourselves because not many people do. But, we're all in this together, playing our different roles. And so I just want to, again, highlight our thanks and recognition. Councillor Anna and I like to visit lots of places and lots of community groups, our community houses, events. I think I even mentioned it in my chair's report. Apart from our council responsibilities, we're always out and about. And in one of our recent visits to Western Community, Neil was able to take us around the centre, but also show us the area that the report is talking to, and the space is just not being used, and it's so obvious that more can be done. So I want to thank Neil and his team and for his leadership and for taking the initiative to come up with the concept of a youth space and then to actually action it. That's awesome, and we can't thank you, Neil, enough for your contribution to that community. When I look at people like Emma, I just see resilience. I see a powerhouse. She's got so much passion for her group, and I know it's been a journey trying to find the right space for that club that's just growing and bursting at its seams. And it's people like her and other community heroes who really do the mahi, and we're here to make the final decisions, if you like. But just recognizing all the work that happens behind the scenes and at ground level with our communities. And I will leave it there. Thank you. Were there any other speakers? No. So Councillor Ewan moved and Mangai Oli seconded. Councillor Ewan, do you have anything to add? So we shall go to the vote with raise of your hands, please. All those in favour?
The motion was carried unanimously.
Thank you. Thank you. Moving to item 8. Civil Defence Emergency Management Quarterly Report. Welcome, Calvin.
Morena, Chair and Councillors. With your indulgence, Chair, I'd just like to take the opportunity to introduce Robbie Herman to my left. Robbie joined us mid-year as our Response and Resilience Manager, and he's supporting me in a wide range of the areas that I work across in safety and security and incident control and in the crisis and emergency management spaces. So Robbie's about to enter into the Civil Defence Controller Training Program, and so early next year we will be able to add him to our controller pool. So I just want to take the opportunity to introduce him to councillors. It's the first opportunity we've had to get him in front of you all. So. My report is an update report. It can be taken as read, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions? Mangai Oli.
Thanks, Chair Kish. Thank you, Calvin, for your report. And welcome to Robbie. Maybe Robbie could answer this question regarding page 45 and the NEMA review of reviews. How do the findings from the review of reviews inform, it's like day of days, how does that inform planning at a local level?
I think we've been able to look at that to see what, there's been a consistent sort of series of outcomes that talks about the absence or insufficient engagement of Māori, iwi Māori, into emergency management, the lack of training and participation, and the lack of preparedness that exists. And I think that's those findings across the country, across those 18 or 19 different reviews. There's a consistency which we're now trying to integrate into our work plan moving forward.
So, Calvin, with regards to, when the big rains come, how prepared, how will these findings inform our ability to be prepared and be resilient when that happens?
It will inform and over a period of time to allow us to implement everything that was identified, but it will take us some time, if I'm going to be honest.
Also had a question on page 52 of Diligent, and it was with regards to the Hikurangi Subduction Zone project, and the stage 1 talked about Hamilton City exposure impact assessment had been received based on a magnitude 9.1, which I imagine there's not a lot left. But what were the findings from that? I couldn't see them in the report.
No, it's based on the maximum foreseeable event of a 9.1 eruption on the Hikurangi fault line, and they've looked at what that would look like as it spread across the country. We've just received the data, which is now being uploaded into GIS, so we can look at that in a much more spatial way. So I can't answer that right now, but the idea was that we should be able to integrate the data to a breakdown to consider what the impact would be for Hamilton. The modified Makali indicator, which was the level of shaking in Hamilton, would suggest it's between a 6 and a 7, which would mean that we could likely expect masonry falling off buildings. Some old buildings may potentially collapse if that was a full extent of it. Now, then our aim is to integrate the data to say what impact would that potentially have on bridges, on main highways, on critical infrastructure, gas, power, phone lines, on access to the hospital or other emergency facilities. We haven't been able to undertake that as yet.
Just final follow-up question, Chair Kish, please. So at what stage will that information, that level of detailed analysis, come back to Council?
I would like to certainly have that by my next report.
Cool, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Emma?
Thank you. My questions are just in regards to staff training. Do we still have gaps in our CDM staff training currently?
We will never have enough staff trained, short of getting every person in the organisation trained. when you run an event in a civil defence emergency response, they are staff intensive. To give an indication, we ran our exercise earlier this year. We ran for 2 shifts and we used just on 90 people. Now, if we were to operate 3 shifts a day, we'd probably looking at close to 150 people. And then after 4 days, we'd be looking to rotate those people out and bring in another 150. So that it will be staff intensive. Now, we do have a series of arrangements for surge capacity to come from our neighbouring councils and or through the National Emergency Management Agency to get national resourcing into us. But there would be an expectation that for a start, a council of this size would have a good deal of self-sufficiency for the first sort of 4 to 8 days. So the short answer is we are now trying to get 100% of our staff across council who are foundation trained, which would give us the first step towards getting that. We then move to 25% of our people who are intermediate trained and another 15% who are specialist trained. That would give us a good core to be able to respond to emergencies.
So in terms of this target of 100%, can you speak to HCC staff requirement to do foundation training as part of induction program?
There's 2 parts to that. One is we now have a process where, as part of the onboarding process, all new staff will be required to undertake the foundation training within their first 6 to 8 weeks of being in council. That's as a part of their training. And then the second part is we are looking to retrospectively get as many people as we can trained so that we've got a really broad base of people who have a good understanding of emergency management. And I should say that probably in addition to that, one of the big takeaways that people are finding with the foundation or the first level training is the opportunity to have conversations about them as individuals or as a family, as a whānau, how well prepared they are at home, what have they done to think about or have a plan and have they talked about it. We're a city that's split by the river. We may live on the one side of the river, work on the other. If we have an earthquake, for example, the first thing we would be doing is closing all the bridges. So if you can't get back home, is there a plan in place for your whānau, for your children being picked up, looking after your elderly relative, whatever it is in your family, that people have had opportunity to do that. And I'd sort of extend that out to councillors and just sort of ask the same question about levels of preparedness. There is what you have in a plan, and then if you have to suddenly evacuate your house and you've got 10 minutes to grab whatever you can carry, have you thought about what that might be?
And given that crucial role for elected members, are elected members required to undertake this training as well?
They're not required to. It would be, I think, hugely advantageous if elected members wanted to undertake the training, even if it's for that same conversation we've just had about their individual level of preparedness at home and for their whānau and what that might look like in terms of if something bad does happen. And because something will happen, and this is the part there is this level of complacency that exists across the city, which is probably our biggest Achilles heel in getting people into the idea of being prepared, that they think nothing is going to happen. And it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when it occurs here, whatever that emergency might be it a natural hazard or a man-made hazard, there will be an emergency.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a final question, if I may. How much would it cost for elected members to do foundational training?
If they did it with me, I'd do a special deal. It would cost them nothing.
I like the sound of that. Yeah.
Would you like to...
Yeah, I would like to put forward a staff action that elected members also undertake foundational training as part of the induction program to achieve the 100% staff.
As part of the induction, so not now?
I mean, we could do it now as well, but I think it's better for succession planning that we incorporate it into the induction planning. Well, I'm happy to reflect on staff advice though.
Through you, Chair, there is no time like the present. And so I'd be saying, yes, we could perhaps make that in, it's part of the induction process for future new elected members, but that doesn't preclude elected members currently from undergoing the training. This is about personal awareness and understanding. And the additional thing is that puts you in a better position to better understand perhaps the role of an elected member during a disaster. Part of it is what you do beforehand, and part of it then is to inform you so that when you're having a range of community engagements, you have the background to talk with some authority about emergency management, being prepared, and what the community can do. We're a small team in terms of how we reach out to the community, so we're leveraging off all of our opportunities. If I think about the number of interactions that elected members have, there is a voice there to continue to spread the message about emergency management.
Brilliant. So that's noted as a staff action for to offer elected members.
Yes, we've captured that as a staff action.
Perfect. That was it, Councillor?
Yes, thank you.
Cool. Councillor Anna.
Kia ora, thank you. And I think you were talking about my question a little bit in your last little kōrero there around, I guess I was interested in how communities will start to organise on a street level and kind of like where we're at with that work, and particularly interested in how our community development team might be part of that response, and if they have the capacity really at this point to initiate that work and get that going, and just how that's all playing out, I guess.
I guess a couple of answers there, Councillor Anna.
Yeah.
Community resilience planning is, there will be sorry, I'll start again. We're launching from a social media campaign, which is in my report there, and that will be the start of a whole series of community engagements moving forward to community resilience building, developing community resilience plans, whatever that looks like. That might be, for example, with some of the communities that were identified through the number of reviews that were done, the elderly, people with disabilities, new migrants were all identified in those reports on a continuing basis as being groups that weren't particularly well communicated with, so there's some resilience development going on with that. There is certainly a role for community development. In fact, there is a role for a number of public-facing council organisations or parts of, including, as I said before, elected members, to spread that message about resilience and development of community participation. And that's based around protect yourself first and foremost and your whānau, and then it might be your neighbour, and then it might be your street, which is the very thing that you're talking about, this resilience building. Depending on the nature of the emergency that occurs, it could be a period of time before we're able to get to a particular street. If there's been an earthquake and someone is hemmed in by liquefaction, that may not be our first priority if we've got buildings that have collapsed and people potentially trapped inside. And so it might be a period of days before we get to that. So that's about your actual preparation at home, having your plan, having an emergency kit, knowing what you're going to do, and having those conversations as a whānau.
Kia ora. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Maria?
Tēnā korua, kia ora matua, Calvin. What are some examples of working in partnership with mana whenua, and when working with mana whenua, are you also working with the other Māori organisations that take care of people that aren't mana whenua?
This is a developing area for us. Our first start was to develop our own pauarahi. So through mana whenua and mātau waka representatives who are there to support the controller and then in the delivery of our emergency responses. And then we're leveraging off that to try and move further into the iwi Māori community. And so the next thing is we're engaging with our Amarangi Māori as to how we reach out into the wider iwi, Māori iwi community to forge those bonds, but then look at how we can provide support to them.
Excellent. Just one very quick question. Other than educating the community about the immediate physical needs that they might require in, as a consequence of any man-made or natural disaster. What help is provided in terms of trauma and the mental health aspects of these kinds of events may impact?
That's the stuff that comes in after, during and at the end of the response phase, once we've had an emergency. One of the things that the research has tended to think is to show us is that if people have been prepared and have thought about these things in advance, there is often lesser psychosocial impact on those people because they've been able to some degree mitigate some of the impact because of the prior planning, because of the thinking and discussing what the people would do. So there's that part that you talk about during and after the event, but a lot of that is influenced by what we do in the front end. And so in civil defence, we talk about the 4 Rs, which is the reduction activity, the readiness activity, then response and recovery. The more time and effort we're putting into the front 2 Rs in that reduction, and Plan Change 14 and flood hazards is part of that reduction activity. Right at the front end, the stuff that we're doing with our community ahead of an event is the readiness, making them ready, and that's proven that has the biggest impact in actually mitigating some of the psychosocial things that happen.
Excellent. Do you think the same approach can be adopted to a man-made hazard, for example, COVID?
Yes, it is. And look, we're on the start of a pretty long journey of trying to identify all of our man-made hazards across the city. And there are a lot. And part of that is then to share that with our community so they have the level of hazard awareness that might impact on them where they are living.
Kia ora.
Thank you. Calvin, in terms of training and things, with schools, is it council's responsibility to ensure they are trained in preparedness, or is that a Ministry of Education?
Once upon a time, council used to do training in schools. But if you consider how many schools there are and how many classes that would be, and we have 2 permanent staff in Hamilton in our civil defence, it's just not practical or feasible. Our preference is to do a 1 to the teachers, for example, rather than to individual classes. We get inundated. We find that our retirement community or retirement homes are another who like to invite us to come along, and we could fill up a whole year with going around retirement homes just doing those conversations, and that doesn't necessarily add a great deal of value. Insofar as whichever retirement home it is, they've got the obligation to have plans in place to be able to support and or evacuate their residents. I think there's better ways that civil defence can be invested in working more with the community.
Yeah. So is there like a toolkit or something that exists where if a rest home or a school teacher or whoever was interested in training themselves?
There's a whole heap of stuff online on the Get Ready, Get Through and at our website, and they're able to engage with us, and we're happy to give them some guidance or direction, and if necessary, do the introductory session for them.
Gotcha. Thank you. There are no other questions. Councillor Emma, were you happy to move this? Yep. And Councillor Louise to second. Thank you, Calvin. Councillor Emma.
Thank you firstly to Calvin and our small but passionate team of civil defence, and welcome to Robbie as well, and all the best for your controller training. I know you'll already be an asset to the team, so welcome. As noted in the report, Hamilton Civil Defence has a lot of work to do in the readiness and resilience space, and that basically reflects that how prepared we are for an emergency. We've seen recently emergencies across the country in our Hawke's Bay and Coromandel and Northland, and we would be naive to think that Hamilton is safe because no one is exempt. And Hamiltonians must shake ourselves out of the complacency, otherwise we'll never be motivated to act and prepare ourselves for emergencies. It's not about waiting years, it could be tomorrow or months ahead, so we have to do what we can now. New HCC staff are required to do foundation training, and I think EMs have a critical role in not only leading the way for our community to prepare and react in emergency, but also looking at our own homes and creating plans to inspire others. The message today is we are all civil defence, but if we don't start with ourselves, then how can we expect others to react and prepare? So I welcome the action for all new staff and being 100% trained, and also welcoming EMs getting trained in this also. Thank you.
Councillor Maria?
O tēnā tātou, it is fantastic to see in the NEMA review of reviews, what a name, that the role of iwi Māori has been acknowledged as a strong contributor to community resilience. If you think about the earthquakes that happened in Christchurch, the first on the scene, and the greatest contributors financially also to rebuilding of Christchurch City was Ngāi Tahu. If you think about Cyclone Gabriel, the first on the scene and the biggest contributors to rebuilding the place in Gisborne and Wairoa and Here Taunga were actually the iwi of those area. If you think about the man-made hazards here and COVID, the first on the scene for us here in Hamilton, Kirikiriroa, were Waikato Tainui. It wasn't the council that our people went to. So it is absolutely crucial that we form a genuine and robust relationship with local iwi in preparation for any potential man-made or natural hazard. Tēnā tātou.
Any other speakers? I just want to acknowledge Councillor Emma for your leadership and your role that you play in the civil defence space on behalf of Council. Your passion is obvious, so we thank you for that. And just something that I picked up during the questions was, with EMs being trained in preparedness, but also us talking about it at all the events we go to. Because if I had to think about how many events we speak at every week or month, if there was a 2-liner or a 3-liner of something to add, especially with our migrant communities, there are so many events. I think that would add real value. So thank you for pointing that out as well. Anything to add, Councillor Emma? Nope, all good. We shall go to the vote with a show of hands. All those in favour?
The motion was carried unanimously.
Thank you. So we're going to go on to our next item. Item 9, our destinations group update with Sean. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you, Chair. Look, I can't resist this, but having listened through the last session on civil defence, I'd like to just make a comment on that and remind elected members that the team that I look after, especially the H3 team, we take civil defence pretty seriously, and we actually see ourselves as a fairly important point of call on civil defence response if needed, both in terms of the places that we operate, for sanctuary and for a range of services that we can provide, like we did with the pandemic, with the frozen meals and things, but also for the nature of the staff that we have and the skills that they have and what they do in event management are very transferable when it comes to logistics planning, crisis management and so forth. So I'd like to assure you that we take it pretty seriously. I'd also like to reinforce some points that Calvin made about being prepared, and a lot of the work that we did in advance of the recent pandemic that we had was actually prepare our staff for the fact that something might go down here. And that actually meant that when it did go down, and Jacinda came online at lunchtime to say we were shutting down, it was a bit of a non-event for the people, which really came through quite strongly of sort of being prepared. And I can also vouch firsthand from the Christchurch earthquake situation, which I wasn't there for the first one, but I was involved in the aftermath. Once again, the notion of look after yourself first, then look after others. And Ngāi Tahu
who I was quite involved with, they did exactly that. They looked after themselves first. When they knew they were sorted, they then went to the rest of the community and said, right, we're sorted, how can we help? And that was fantastic, but they couldn't do that until they'd looked after themselves first, and that was really, really important. So I'd just like to add that if I may. Anyway, the paper that you have in front of you is very much a general update of our group's activity. You're aware that we already formally report our activities through to the Economic Development Committee, and as such, the inclusions in the report, or the links in the report, refer to the year-end reports for each of the 4 destinations that are in my portfolio. So you have seen this information again. The agenda paper itself provides a bit of an update on some of the metrics or the non-financial numbers that since the start of the new financial year that we're in, providing you with July-September numbers. But let me give you some October figures, just for the 1 month. Hamilton Zoo had 18,100 visitors. Waiwhakariki, just under 3,000 visitors that we could record. And there's a recording issue there, so maybe more. The gardens themselves, the enclosed gardens, 27,500 visitors in the 1 month. For October, the museum, it's closed, but we have the Excite exhibitions open during the closure, but still had just on 2,000 visitors, which we were really surprised at. And for the H3 suite of venues, we had in the month of October 106 events and 36,500 attendees at those events. So that's before all the community stuff that was discussed before, like the Diwali events and so forth. And last weekend, for example, we had around 6,000 people at Claudelands for just one event. So there's a lot of action going on, and it's very encouraging. I think the thing that I'd like to highlight is obviously the gardens admission is a big development for us. It's been a long time coming, and people in this room have been very involved in the thinking that's gone behind that. But we started charging admission on the 18th of September, and through until from the 18th of September to the 31st of October, once again, we actually coincidentally had 27,100 non-Hamiltonians visit and pay. We've also pre-sold 1,100 odd annual passes to people, some of whom have been using them, some have yet to use them. And we've actually had pass revenue in that period of just on $400,000, which is pretty much on plan. So not wildly ahead of plan, but just a little bit up on plan, which is exciting, bearing in mind that this is early summer, the spring season. So it's looking good. And I think, as some of you are aware, we have been fortunate in that the experience we've had is that people have been very, very accepting of the charging regime. Hamiltonians have been very accepting of the process that they have to go through in order to get free admission. It has astounded us how many Hamiltonians have registered themselves for free admission. And as I say, very, very little comment negatively about the charging or the impost of the fees. So interesting to see sort of how we go. The changes, however, have had a big impact on the staffing at the Hamilton Gardens. It's not just the charging, and not just the advent of the opening of the new visitor centre, which has been very successful, but they are in a new business zone now. So charging for tour groups and the processes and everything else they have to go through, a more commercially orientated utilisation of the venue spaces that they have going through. So it has actually been quite a bit more change back of house than perhaps a lot of people have realised, and they've done a great job, but they do have a few more hurdles to go through until we're really, really straight. I think I'd rather take any questions you may have on the venues, because I could wax on, as you know, for all of them. I will highlight, however, something that is popping up, and some of you may be aware of it, but the government is increasingly concerned about the avian flu that's potentially going to hit us, and there are some signs that it might be here already. And you wonder why I'm worried about the avian flu. Well, basically, it's what does this mean for New Zealand and that, but in particular the zoo is susceptible to that with the wildlife or the bird life in particular, and you should be aware that in actual fact we do have plans already in place for some of the birds in our care to be put effectively into quarantine zones, utilising some of the new properties that we've actually just recently purchased so that they can be put out of harm's way. It's as simple as a bird getting into the aviary. Somehow. It's as simple as a bird flying over an aviary and leaving its wee message on its way through, which happened to me the other day in Brisbane. So I just wanted you to be aware that from the zoo perspective, we are actually taking it quite seriously, and it's something for us to think about. Richard Sim, who is our head veterinarian at the zoo, is actually on the New Zealand Government's working party, who are working on the overall response to the possible avian contagion coming through. So he's on that team with Primary Industries and that. So just wanted to be aware of that. The second part of the paper talked about examples of community use at our various venues, and I would stress that what is in the paper is just some samples of some of the community users that we have. There's often particularly when it comes to Claudelands, there's a question mark over how we operate in a semi-commercial environment and how does the community tap it into that. I can assure you the community users are actually probably far greater than most people realise because they come in and go out. They're not community users that have a room necessarily every Thursday night from 7 o'clock until 9 o'clock, but they are community users nevertheless. We have quite a big growth in ethnic community activities and functions and events, which are driven by community groups. And I think a couple of examples to give you that we do community use on if it's available, can we do it cheaply? Can we fit it in with something else so we can reduce the cost? But it's usually just a one-off event. So, for example, Relay for Life, or some of you may have participated in that. We do that work, but we've managed to time it in so that the spaces are free, is freely available. We have staff on board already, no incremental cost. But we do, if there is an incremental cost, and our staff time is an incremental cost, additional AV support services, cleaning, health and safety, the community user has to pay for that if there's a cash cost involved to the business. One of the interesting stories, and I shouldn't be too specific, but there is a group that does a massive prayer session every year for around, it's over 2,000 people, sometimes a bit higher. The challenge we had with the conversation of trying to help them with a location, which was quite difficult, was to say, how can they use Claudelands, for example? How can they pay the things they just simply have to pay? Otherwise, it's council effectively paying for it. And it actually took us a wee while to work through with them a money solution so that it could happen. But they actually hadn't previously thought as a group of how they could resolve that money situation, and they have. And now it's actually become quite easy. If we look at the disruption we caused for a lot of kapa haka groups when we moved out of Founders Theatre, who always said there's no way we can ever go to Claudelands, it's just too big and we can't pay. Kapa haka is becoming a mainstay at Claudelands now in various forms. But we worked with those groups over time to find ways that we could get the income that we need to pay for the base costs and so forth, but they could still do it and as a part of their community work and their community service. We have a kapa haka group coming in for around 600 people this weekend coming. And their story there is that they were subjected to a double booking in another location and couldn't work out where to go. So we were able to work with that operator and we were able to find a financial solution to help them out. I suspect, without saying too much, in a year's time or 2 years' time, their financial solution they will realise that they can actually pay a bit more and actually might make a little bit more, because what we found with Founders is suddenly they could take more people into Claudelands, they could charge a little more and things like that. So I do want to reassure you that we work with community groups where we can, and we do help facilitate things through. But with that, I'm happy to take any questions, Chair.
That was a good summary. Thank you, Sean. Like you say, the so many destinations covered. So thank you for the very, brief but thorough update. Councillor Louise, question?
2 questions
Sure.
maybe. To kind of go back right to the start, as a Westwood councillor, if I was going to visit Waiwhakariki and I wanted to be counted that I went there, what route should I be taking through Waiwhakariki to get my numbers counted?
Just take whatever route suits you for now, because we haven't got the proper system in place. We did have a counting system in place, but it suddenly went ballistic and we realised there were a lot of ants crawling all over it. So, look, we don't have a good counting system in place. We're working on it.
Okay.
For that. It's easy at the zoo because it's an admission-based
Yeah.
system. It's easy at the gardens, it's admission-based. But with Waiwhakariki, we have to get a better solution.
Are we confident there is an ant-proof solution?
Yeah, we are now.
Okay, cool.
Only have ant fences.
Yeah, ant fences. And just, I found the update really useful on community utilisation, but I'm also aware that some councillors are totally acknowledge that you feel that you've got it right, but just have an earnest interest in understanding it a bit more, but also want to balance not asking possibly PX questions in a public session. So just curious if a staff action could maybe be, could we have 30 minutes of Sean's time at some point to just ask some questions in a briefing or something?
Absolutely.
Cool, awesome. That's it.
Thank you. Councillor Ewan.
Hi, thanks, Madam Chair. Hi, Sean. Quick question regarding how's the CAF at the gardens going after the implementation of the charging? Is it positive data? They're always really busy when I see them.
Look, it's never good enough, but it's really positive data, seriously. Even when the gardens build program was going on and it was highly disruptive, their trading was ahead of plan, even during that period. So it's going extremely well. The cafe is about to change ownership in terms of the, in fact, that's happening over the next few days. The existing contract holder has decided to sell out, and we're going through an assignment process where the person who's buying their business is being signed up and everything else. So we've got a bit of care there. We've had meetings with the new cafe operator. Obviously, the existing cafe operator still has actually an obligation to ensure that person performs, or that business performs. So we'll see how that one works out. But the cafe's been doing extremely well. I mean, I go to the gardens a lot more frequently now than I used to, and it just amazes me in the morning how busy it is.
Yeah.
With all those walkers. And that one thing where I think there will be pressure is, that I didn't say, is that the irony is that with the charging regime being introduced, suddenly we're getting a lot of tour groups popping up, and so we've got quite a big amount of growth at the moment in tour groups coming up, which in turn is going to put pressure on the cafe pre-booking. We do have in the LTP in the next 2 or 3 years' time provision to do some refurbishment of the cafe itself, because it is getting a bit tired, and I think we do need to get it better organised for the purpose that it serves there. But no, pretty well.
Excellent. So I'm glad you're keeping an eye on that. Final question I have is regarding the accommodation offering at the zoo.
Oh, yes.
Or maybe the lack thereof. We've now got 2 properties. We've spent roughly $5 million so far. When are we going to see a clear, detailed plan and time frame for some form of execution of an accommodation offering?
As soon as we can, and I actually did mean to talk to that in my original opening. But yes, look, we're actually taking that project back to, I don't want to say grassroots, but back to square one, where we're revisiting the spatial plan for the precinct that we have to make sure we have a clear sequence of what has to happen, and also to be clear on how the accommodation component of that overall plan can evolve and organically evolve, because we obviously don't have a lot of budget to put in, and I guess part of that we're looking at may well be going back to the very original plan for that accommodation precinct, and it may well also be looking at how can we, because it has to be commercial, how do we monetize it in a way that doesn't cost us money or alleviates our risk. So we may well form a private sector partnership or get someone to actually operate it for us or whatever. So
and that was going to be my question.
Yeah.
Because clearly the barrier to us doing it is we have no money.
Yeah.
We still need a solution.
Yep.
And so we had talked about going to the market with expressions of interest.
Yep.
So that's what you're now thinking of.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that could open a whole gambit of operators.
Absolutely.
Who could see the potential fund it.
And there's any number of options as to what it could be. I guess in my own head, and I'm being a bit premature here when I say this, is that I wonder if it's going to be an organic development as opposed to suddenly building a big new hotel and everything that goes with that. So it'll be something that will evolve and demand will build up for that. So we're revisiting that whole question right now. The land that we've recently acquired, just saying the recent property, that will be filled up with some rhinoceroses and other animals shortly. So I would stress that that land purchase wasn't just for this accommodation project. It was also for other needs at the zoo in terms of space. So that's all happening pretty quickly as well.
Yeah, just on that, of course, that's why we've secured it, so that people could see the rhinoceros in that environment, right?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just confirm, though, if there's a commercial partnership, we would not contemplate surrendering the land. The land would always be retained by council. It would be a lease agreement or...
Yeah, right. It'd be like leasing out the cafe at the gardens, that sort of model, I imagine. But no, we'd never relinquish the land.
Great. I just wanted that assurance. Cool. Oh, sorry, you didn't actually answer when you think. When will you come back to us?
As soon as we can, but in the first quarter next year.
Great, thank you.
As soon as we can.
Just so I can...
He'll be working through Christmas by that smile on his face.
I'm
Okay,
regretting
just
saying that
wondering.
already.
Thank you. Councillor Anna.
Kia ora, Sean, and thank you for your report, particularly around the community use for H3. Just a question. You obviously work in quite a nuanced way with groups and looking to support them. I guess my concern is how that approach or valuing is protected going forward. I mean, you're not going to be there forever. So just the sort of the policy driver of that, or the way in which that approach of, because it is a commercial basis to H3, how that valuing of community is protected going forward.
Well, look, I don't think it's wrapped around me specifically. If you look at the original work that was done to put the case for Claudelands, and this was before my time, it was very, very clear in terms of being a commercial application, but it was also quite clear on where it can support community initiatives that we should do so. And what I will do is have it circulated, is back in 2017, we actually did a major paper to council where this whole question of commercial versus community application of the H3 operation was discussed and resolved to continue to follow the modus operandi that we currently are doing. Now, that was back in 2017. I would suggest that nothing much has changed since then, but I will circulate that paper for sort of deeper background. But it is a balancing act. It's a real... just remember that from my point of view, we have a huge amount of opportunity with capacity to grow the business, both commercially, but also where we have capacity available, we want it to be utilised. So we don't want to waste it. It's just how do you marry the bookings up with a commercial opportunity, a conference of 400 people that moved in today, for example, versus having it blocked out for a community user that's not going to pay. It's really difficult. So that's why we have to have quite a fluid approach to what we do. And it's also the use of our venue, because it's quite a multifunctional venue, different types of rooms, different types of formats, different types of equipment, different types of setups required by clients. Just about every file is bespoke. And so everything is about a quote, and also everything is about a quote in a competitive environment when we're pitching against Christchurch or Auckland or Wellington.
Right. So I think you're saying that the community aspect is protected largely through...
I think so, and I think if you spoke to my staff or my team, they would probably see themselves as being doing more effort in community than they do necessarily commercial.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Tim?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, Sean. Thank you for your report and for all the good work you and your team are doing. If I could ask a couple of questions relating to the gardens, and then on another topic, I'd be grateful. I'm not surprised and very, very pleased to hear that visitor numbers are looking so strong since the introduction of visitor charging. I always thought they would. I note that you've also noted an increase in the number of inbound tour operators, which is encouraging. Has the total cost to those tourists changed? Because they always were paying $25, I think, for their actual guided tour, plus $20 now for entry. Is it now $45 for them?
Look, I can't tell you the dollars, but yes, it has changed. Yes, but I can't tell you what the exact dollars is.
Right,
because in terms of the charge. But yes, it has put the fees up.
I asked that question.
I think it's maybe $17 or $18, something like that. So it's a package price.
Right.
Yeah.
The reason I asked that question is, for a brief time, I was working as a tour guide down there, and the overwhelming feedback from people was, boy, these are world-class, this is absolutely outstanding. And you mean I didn't even have to pay to come in, and all I'm paying is a minimal sum for the tour. So my strong instinct is that most tourists wouldn't balk at even a greater increase, and that on behalf of the beleaguered ratepayer who's been paying for so much work, let's just see if we can work towards a bit more revenue from that means. The other thing is there are donation boxes on site at the gardens, but my understanding is they're not particularly well supported, and it may just be because they're not particularly prominent. Do you know what the revenue from the donations boxes is, or in the pattern?
I don't offhand. I'll find out, but it's not substantial at all in terms of those donation boxes. But I will also say that they haven't necessarily been in the right spot either. So they haven't. One thing that has increased is our sales at the souvenir store.
Great.
That really has, and we're starting to play around with things. So the Peter Sergel book is just about sold out. It's going for a reprint already. And I mean, this sounds odd, but well, it's not odd, but you know, it was as simple as after they set the new store up, after the opening of, actually after a few days, they decided to move the books to another location, and suddenly they doubled the sales. You know, so there's a lot of that going on. So.
Thank you for that. If I just come back to the donations boxes, because I agree with the comments that you made a moment ago, it's also fairly quaint that they still rely on the old-fashioned koha of either a note or a coin.
Yeah.
And in this day and age, not many people are carrying cash. Yeah. I wonder, and Councillor Emma just made a comment as well, I wonder whether there might be an option for an electronic type of donation, because another comment that I was conscious of quite frequently, particularly from those who come from a culture where tipping is common, is that after you've come out and you've really enjoyed the visitor experience, you are inclined perhaps to give a little bit more, and maybe there's a chance for some revenue. So I guess that's more of a comment, but is it something you could look into?
Yes, absolutely.
And if I may now change to a topic that you mentioned in your written report, but didn't cover in your comments earlier, the restoration work on the grandstand at Claudelands. Good to hear that it's happening, because it's a beautiful building, although perhaps not one that's particularly well known in the city. How significant are the borer issues that you mentioned?
Yeah, well, look, we actually stopped work for a while because it just seemed to be every time they took a panel off, it got worse. But in actual fact, we got 2 different experts to review it, and we're okay to carry on with the work. and we don't think it's quite as bad as where it was headed. We thought it was going to be. We hope to have that work completed in February next year. Previously, we have been using that venue largely for weddings, sort of family functions and so forth. We are, and I guess this is announcing it, we are looking quite seriously, however, at repurposing it as a permanent cafe. So we may well put a tender out for it as opposed to it being a function venue. It would have certain controls over it because of obviously its interface with Claudelands and the Oval at certain times. But if you look at the amount of traffic that goes through Claudelands to and from the farmers market, that walks through there, you look at the traffic that's going to the Magic Bridge play centre, playgrounds, we think it's actually a sitter for a cafe. And I'm usually a bit cynical about everyone saying, oh, put a cafe in. But it's a beautiful location and it's a stunning building. And so we're wondering if that might be a better deployment of that place.
It would certainly increase utilisation, which is
Well,
fairly
yes,
low at the moment.
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
The question I was going to ask relating to Bora is, because I don't know much about that issue other than the fact that it's clearly a problem, is it able to be overcome? You can,
Yes,
you
yeah,
can absolutely stop that issue. What's the heritage status?
It's got every heritage control you could possibly imagine.
Right.
On
So,
it.
so we'd have a firm obligation to maintain.
Yes, we have
it.
no choice,
Yep.
and the nature of the restoration that we have to do down to the panelling inside and everything else is very strictly controlled. So,
Right.
yeah.
And so is the restoration falling solely on the ratepayer, or is some of it coming from philanthropic?
It's on the
sources?
ratepayer.
Solely on the ratepayer.
Yep.
Okay. Good. Yeah, it's quite exciting to hear that possible development. Thank you for that.
Thank you, and thank you, Sean, for your update. Yeah, large scope of work that you guys take hold of. So, yeah, lots of work. I'm really pleased to read in the report that the Well Energy funding has been received for the Waiwhakariki Natural Heritage Park and the delivery of the predator-proof fence. I couldn't find, though, how far away the delivery of the project is and if we're on track.
Yeah, we're a bit behind schedule. Look, that funding is only going to fund part of it, so we still have more money to raise.
Yeah.
So effectively, as we raise money, we're doing it.
Okay.
But we still have more to go to get a complete enclosure happening, so the team are working on that.
So we're actively looking for more
Yes, we are.
funding on that.
We are.
Okay. Thank you.
There are no other questions. Perfect. I'm happy to move if there's a seconder, Councillor Anna, or pick one. Paper, scissors, rock. Thank you, Sean.
Please go to the opening of the museum. You'll see a little bit more of the river than you had previously.
That's early December, isn't it? Yep. Okay, so thank you, Sean, for the update. It was a really good opportunity to ask more questions. As you can tell, there's a lot of interest from elected members around what's happening in each of our sites. So thank you for that, and the transparency of the report. The numbers that you talked about, amazing numbers. I've made little scribbles down, but in 1 month to have 18,000 people through the zoo, 27,500, I think you said, through the enclosed gardens just in October. So that is really promising numbers pre-summer. I did ask Sean a little while earlier about the parking over summer, and they are working with a few short-term solutions, but there's no magic bullet in terms of the parking issues at the gardens. So just yes, Chair of Finance is doing that. So indeed, that is going to be a challenge. So it's something that we should all just keep at the back of our mind as well. Very exciting to hear about the developments at the grandstand, especially the thought of having a cafe in that location. Being users of the playground, and I'm sure others as well, there is nothing in that vicinity. So it's all about location when it comes to cafes, and we definitely have a good location, and obviously the surrounding Gardens Cafe, thank you for the questions, Councillor Wilson, as well. It is looking very tired, and it doesn't quite match the opening, you know, the entrance. So looking forward to how we can work on that, hopefully sooner rather than later, because if it looks nice, people are going to spend more. It's just how it is. And thank you for the report about community users as well. I trust in what you've talked about, and thank you and the team for working with community groups as well to get them into our facilities as much as possible, noting that it is a commercial operation, but I'm glad that we have that flexibility. So thank you. Who was the seconder again? Councillor Ewan.
Would not. Look, I just want to say this is the last Community and Natural Environment Committee, and this is the last item. So first of all, I want to thank you, Chair, for a really good year. And this is always a delightful committee with not too much angst, unlike that the Infrastructure and Transport Committee. So it's always really enjoyable, and I want to thank you for your very lengthy and colourful Chairs reports in the last 12 months. And you're well connected with the community, and I appreciate that. I also want to thank the general managers and the senior staff as well. They support you in your work, I can see that. So with that out of the way, I just want to focus just on the outstanding numbers, and Chair, you have said this anyway, from the Hamilton Gardens. If we continue with this trend, we are well on the way of getting in, the new revenue of $1.2 million, given that there's been just under 30,000 just from the 14,500 people that have paid for single entry in the last couple of months. So that's fantastic. I'm most pleased to read actually that travel trade for the gardens is really strong, and their inbound tour operators are booking for the paid product. Do you know, it's one of those things, and other than Mayor Southgate, who's not here, Councillor Wilson and myself, were the only ones around back in the day under Mayor Andrew King, and I was not a fan of Mayor King. But when he did initially dump the $25 entry fee on us, I was appalled and jumped on my social media and made sure the public were appalled as well. It was just the lumpy way, I think, that he addressed that and brought that to fruition, but I'm just going to keep going because I can, just for a moment. But look, I want to thank everyone involved. It's an incredible facility, and actually all of the H3 venues under the direction of the General Manager are doing extremely well, and as a fairly small city, we should be immensely proud of the achievements, and I look forward to future years of achievements. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson, is it all right if I just go online first to Councillor Jeff?
Yeah, thanks, Chair Kesh. Yeah, two points I just want to make regarding the gardens. One is it's the charge for the themed gardens. It's really exciting to hear those figures, and I was actually around also in the term where Mayor King proposed a charge. But as one who preferred to actually start at a lower level and work our way up, it looks like I was wrong in that view, and I'm happy to acknowledge that and happy to be wrong. And I just want to acknowledge the staff who championed the existing going to this charge for the themed gardens, and also the elected members who led that as well. Well done. Yeah, that's really exciting. Secondly, I just want to acknowledge Craig and Jenny Fraser, who ran the Gardens Cafe absolutely brilliantly, and are now moving on, and somebody else is taking over. But that cafe was at a real low when those guys took over, and they transformed it. And their great work in turning around that cafe was brilliant for the gardens, brilliant for the council, because we reaped the commissions from their work, and also brilliant for Hamilton. So well done to them. They did a fantastic job, and I hope we as a council are going to acknowledge the role the Frosers played in turning that cafe around. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ewan?
Yeah, thanks, Madam Chair. Look, I want to take the opportunity to acknowledge that when I think of the destination group, I think of it as an endless amount of opportunity. And I acknowledge it frequently battles members of our community who are pretty nasty in terms of their commentary, with money spent in things like Claudelands Event Centre, the zoo, the gardens. They see it as something that is unnecessary and it's a waste of ratepayers' resources, while not taking a more helicopter view of realising the vital component it plays, not only ensuring as we grow as a city, we have these types of offerings, that it's part of a mature society, right? That we have event facilities and gardens and the zoo. And not only do I not subscribe to the view that actually this isn't the role of local government, because in fact it is, I also now want to highlight and celebrate the fact that when done well, it can actually be, over time, a revenue source, right? And so, I'm really pleased about that. But I'm also mindful that despite how well H3 will operate, it will never really cut a profit because of the huge capital costs with the assets that are involved. But it's the wrong measure of the word profit, because if you take the broader economic impact that it has, there is profit there. It helps the restaurants, it helps the hotels, it helps a sense of destination, and so that needs to be measured as well. Quickly, in regards to the zoo, please, let's not make that too complicated. There are global examples of where cabins can be created with beautiful views into wildlife parks, and it's well occupied. Final comment, Garden Cafe. Like Councillor Jeff, the current managers have done a great job. As we transition to the new managers, I'm hopeful staff will be mindful that we want to maintain the courage and dedication the former owners have provided. But it's also at a time where we've got to match the infrastructure with our most recent investment, and I think we'll need to spend some more money there. But don't be worried. There will be a rate of return on that investment, and it's an opportunity for leverage. So that's just my thought.
Councillor Tim?
Thanks, Chair Kesh. I put my name up on the speaking list a few minutes ago, and since Councillors Jeff and Ewan and Deputy Mayor Angela have spoken, I find most of what I was going to say has been covered, but I will just add a couple of comments. The first is, could I say a thank you, Sean, to you and your team. Mangai Oli and I were involved in the civic celebration of the life of the late Lieutenant Colonel Laurie Pilling, a very fine, prominent and generous Hamiltonian. And it was a very good event in the Claudelands Stadium. The only concern was that on the day, some of the elderly speakers struggled with the stairs. And I just want to acknowledge the fact that, having reported the issue, because sadly one gentleman did trip, fortunately he wasn't injured, but I think his pride took a bit of a battering. Within 24 hours, that issue was being dealt with. And so I just want to thank you, Sean, and the team for the way in which that was handled, and also to acknowledge the very fine service of the Claudelands staff on the day, who I think were really helping to run the event very well. Now that leads into the wider point, and Councillor Ewan has just covered it very well, but I genuinely believe that there are more opportunities for the utilisation of our wonderful attractions, and we do have some wonderful facilities and attractions here in Hamilton, to generate greater revenue. And given the fiscal position that this city is in, the fact that we now have some fine facilities, some wonderful attractions, our zoo is outstanding, It really is, and it's starting to become known, but the average New Zealander outside Hamilton still doesn't really know about it, and we need to change that. Our gardens are literally world class. My own experience, having worked there briefly, is that our tourists would happily pay double. Not necessarily tourists from within New Zealand, but definitely the tourists who are coming from overseas. Earlier this year, my wife and I went to Kew Gardens in London for the first time. We did pay more than double by the time the exchange rate was taken into account. That has always been the case when we've visited gardens overseas, and I don't think anybody has any trouble with that. Tourists come because they want to enjoy the attractions, the scenery, and the people of New Zealand. We give them a very good deal. Over time, I hope that we will continue to increase our pricing to ensure that we take a little bit away from the ratepayer who has, let's face it, paid for most of this over the years, and ensure that we start to ensure that these things can be really profitable without fleecing anybody. So thank you.
Thank you. No other speakers? I just wanted to quickly wrap up. Thank you, Deputy Mayor, for your comments around your thanks of the team, and thank you to a couple of councillors who highlighted the Frasers and their role in the Garden Cafe. I'm sure that we will be doing something to acknowledge them as well. I also wanted to quickly touch on something Councillor Ewan raised in regards to the strategic focus that Council needs to have. It might seem that we're spending money, but it is that strategic lens around, you often, for example, we've got a destinations update coming to the community committee, and it reports into economic development as well. And that's, it shows the overlap between the two really well, because we often talk about, the challenge with waters and infrastructure and our growth projections and all of the other big stuff. But at the very heart of it is the why. Why do people choose to live in Hamilton? And that's because of community. People flock to our city. We are the fastest growing in New Zealand because of community. Young families love our playgrounds. That's community. Or our water aquatic facilities. We have an incredible zoo. I've been to so many zoos around the world, and our zoo, hands down, and I'm not biased, maybe a little, but we have an amazing zoo. When you have little kids, a trip around a whole zoo in about 3 hours, that's amazing. And you get to see all the animals. So that type of offering is not heard of. It's not, you don't get that everywhere. So we're really lucky for what we have in our city. So when we hear the argument about core versus non-core spending for council, it kind of annoys me, because community is linked to everything that we do, and we see it rightfully in this committee. It's not in a silo with nice to haves. It's actually what underpins our growth and everything else that's happening in and around us. So I just wanted to close with that comment. And we shall go to the vote with a show of hands. All those in favour?
The motion was carried unanimously.
Thank you. And that brings us to the close of our meeting. Thank you, everyone. We do have a closed briefing next, but we are going to break, obviously. So 10 minutes?